All right, today I'm pretty excited because the Sonos Aero 300s just came in. It's a speaker that I've been interested in trying out for a long time. I've been totally an ATMOS freak as long as I've had this Yamaha receiver. And in this room, this is our kind of theater area. I've got 9 speakers placed. Technically, as far as ATMOS is concerned, it's a 5.1.2 system. And it was kind of a pain in the butt to build out, to get speakers mounted to the ceilings, to get them mounted to the walls, get them to the right heights, to EQ everything. It's kind of hard. And I know that most people, when they want to experience ATMOS, don't want to go through all that nonsense. So what most people do is they want to experience ATMOS, they'll buy something like this, the Sonos Aero 300, and just plug it in, and that will be what they do. So I have a pair of these, and I also have a Sonos ARC as well. So I'm interested to hear what these sound like versus this room. I consider it a medium to high-end consumer grade system compared to what I have downstairs in the mixing studio, where I've calibrated each speaker and done an extensive amount of work to make it a 7.1.4 system. So this is 2 Aero 300s. I want to hear what it sounds like with just one of them, with a pair of them, and with the Sonos ARC. Compare that against ATMOS that I'm used to with all these speakers, and get a feel for what's it like. Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? Does it enhance music? Does it make music sound weird? I'm actually curious because I want to know what people hear when they're hearing ATMOS. So check it out. So taking this Aero 300 out of the box, you're greeted with this. So these speakers sell for about $500 to $450, and right now they're on sale, refurbished for $269, so it's a pretty darn good deal. It's hard to tell how many speakers there are in there, so I'm really curious what this is like. So there's something in front, there's something around, and I don't know how many drivers are actually in this thing. So we're gonna hear what it sounds like. Let's check it out. Okay, I've listened to them in a couple different situations now. I listened to the one Sonos by itself, comparing it to my system here, which is technically a 5.1.2 system, ceiling mounted speakers. And then I set up the second Sonos and listened to that. So off the bat, listening to the Sonos by itself, before I even listen to my regular system here, it sounds great. It's a great sounding speaker. Absolutely. I think most people will be super happy with this speaker, better than what most people will listen to. Now, comparing it to like my system, it's not a fair comparison. It's not a fair comparison at all. But if this is all that I knew existed, I think I'd be pretty happy with it. So a couple things. When I went in and set up the Sonos app, for whatever reason, it's not playing Apple Music. It's only letting me play Tidal. So there's that. There's no indication on the ATMOS app, so this might totally invalidate everything that I've done so far. There's no indication, even when I'm playing from ATMOS Masters in Tidal, that it's actually playing it in ATMOS on the speaker itself. So I am now going to put these speakers where they're going to live, which is in our master bedroom, which has the full Sonos ARC and connected to an Apple TV, and that's where they're gonna live. So I'm excited to hear how these interact with the Sonos ARC. I think this is going to be a great improvement over what we had because we were using HomePods in there before. Anyway, I'm excited. This is what I got so far. Looking forward to telling you more detailed thoughts. So I got to try a couple different things. I get the Sonos set up in the master bedroom with the Sonos ARC system, and that is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I did finally figure it out. You have to whatever. There's a whole process you need to go through in order to set them up as a surround. So actually, that is the best situation. That is the best iteration of the ATMOS, is having the Aero 300s paired with a sub and the Sonos ARC. That gives the most enjoyable listening experience. What I found in here when it was just the 1 and the 2, they sounded great. They sounded fabulous. I think most people are going to really love that. But the big difference that I noticed is it really seemed like a very centralized listening situation. Whereas with the speakers that I have all around here, it's not so centralized, and the sound is just the sound, like the sound that you're experiencing. You know, these speakers are pulled probably a little bit far to the corners, farther than they should be, but the effect that has for the listening is you're not aware of any speaker. You're not aware of where the sound is coming from. It's just, the sound is just kind of happening. And I think that's the point of Atmos. The sound is supposed to just be happening in the space, and it's 3D. When the speakers were just here sitting in front, they sounded a bit kind of front focused. They sounded great. I listened to some John Coltrane, and it was, you know, I really wanted to listen to it. Like it was actually really good, and it sounded pretty much good everywhere in the room. I stood up, and it still sounded great. These speakers, when you stand up and move, the sound breaks too much. Like it doesn't work anymore. Okay, editor Eric here the next morning, who did not just come back from the gym like I did yesterday. Just wanted to clarify that one point there. The sound breaks too much. Like it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so what I'm talking about there when I say the sound breaks too much, if I'm in where you see me sitting there and I'm sitting on that couch, it sounds amazing. It sounds absolutely perfect. However, if I stand up and like stand behind the couch or go to another space in the room, suddenly the 3D effect sounds a little weird. It doesn't sound necessarily right anymore. So that rendition in that room, or in this room here, where I have all these speakers around me and speakers above me, and you're seated in the sweet spot, it sounds the best. Like in this room, if I just move back here, I'll move the camera so you can see. If I just move and I sit on this couch in this room, suddenly the effect isn't as good. So when I do like an Atmos demonstration for people, and people come over, I have them sit, you know, in this chair, captain's chair. It sounds perfect right here, because per the Dolby Atmos spec, if you look at the chart, all the speakers have to be at like a specific angle toward the listener. There's like all these rules of how it works. And if you move from that spot, it still sounds good, but it's not like, whoa, it doesn't have that super amazing effect. And some of the things are, you know, they get weird. With the Sonos speakers, it's a more average good. Like they sound really good anywhere. You stand up, you walk across the room, you go grab a drink, whatever. It's gonna sound pretty much the same. You know, it has like a super duper wide sweet spot. Where in this room, if I'm sitting here, it sounds perfect right here. Back here, not so much. So that's what I mean when I say the sound breaks. And I think that's the key difference between consumer grade Atmos and like professional, you know, sound mixer Atmos is that consumer grade version of it sounds super great. It's not like the most amazing version of it, but it sounds really good. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. And since I have you here, I guess I'll just show you. I'll show you a little bit of this room. There's me. This is my 7.1.4 system. So there's a left, a center, a right surround, a right rear surround, a left surround, a left rear surround, a left top front, right top front, a right top rear, and a left top rear. Anyway, so the point that I was making right there is the Sonos speaker has a much wider sweet spot. It's going to sound good pretty much anywhere you're sitting in the room, whereas a tuned system is going to sound good, really good in the sweet spot, but anywhere else is going to be like, not going to sound bad, but it's not going to sound magical. Anyway, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. So I think it's a win for most people's listening situation where they're not going to be sitting in one sweet spot. The sweet spot for the Sonos is kind of everywhere. Now, when I put them with the Sonos ARC, that's when it became really cool. That's when the sound stage was the most expansive. Now they're being used as the surrounds, not as the front. The ARC is the front speaker. But that sounded really great. Like I had no attention on it being just a consumer system at all. I was able to really enjoy the music. I listened to a bit of a movie in there and here that I know has a good surround mix and a good Atmos mix. And while in here, the environmental sounds were a bit more environmental, and in the other room, the environmental sounds were a bit more pulled back, and the voice, the dialogue was a bit more front-centered, which I think is what most people want. I think it's the complaint that most people have with mixes in movies these days is it's really hard to hear dialogue, and the dialogue felt more present on the Sonos ARC than it does here. Now, the way I have my system set up, hearing the dialogue isn't a problem. It's balanced with all of the atmospheric sounds. But anyway, I'm generally very impressed. Listening to music in the other room was very enjoyable. I did listen to the Dolby channel ID thing that says left, right, center, left, rear surround, right, rear surround, that thing. And that was really cool to hear because, especially for the reflected speakers, like the, left, top, front, right, top, front. You got to hear it. It did sound like it was coming from the ceiling. It sounded reflected. So it's weird because in audio, especially speakers, you generally want to not have reflections off of walls, but here you're getting your top channels as a reflection. So that's a bit odd. So anyway, I would place the Sonos ARC, the Sonos, what do you call it? The Sonos ATMOS Era 300 system. I would actually put that as like a solid B+, which is saying a lot. And I think a system like mine in here or downstairs where the Atmos mixing studio is, I would set that as like an A-. Like this would be like an A-. No, up here I think it's an A-, and downstairs is like maybe a solid A. Some people might disagree with me, but anyway, that's my viewpoint. Anyway, it's really cool to hear how Atmos is rendered on different systems, whether you're listening to it on a pair of Apple AirPods, or you're listening to it on just a sound bar that says Atmos on it, whether you're listening to it out of an Apple iPhone or one of their computers. These all have their own Atmos profiles, and I think that's what makes me so excited about Atmos as a medium, is that you can dial in how you want the sound to be, and then the renderer makes its surround version for whatever system you're playing it on. And I think this is where most audio engineers have a gripe, because in my YouTube feed and other things, I see a lot of well-respected audio engineers say things. They don't like Atmos for one reason or another. They say it's a scam. Blah 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 blah. I mean, I get it. If you're the type of person that's going to set up a very audiophile type system, and you're going to set left speaker, right speaker, tune the room, dampen everything, comparing that to the way most people are going to experience Atmos coming out of like their Apple HomePod, you have to. I guess what I'm saying is you really have to kind of free your mind and understand that people are going to be listening in different speaker situations. That's been the problem for every beginning audio mixer ever. You mix your audio on your speakers, and then you go and listen to in your car, and it sounds horrible. And then you listen to it on your friend's system, and it sounds a different type of horrible. And then you kind of get like an average set of not too bad. And then that's what you release, or you send it to a mastering engineer who does their thing to get it more, into a normal range. And that's a very fine art. But I think the beauty of Dolby Atmos is that it gets us into the zone where you can have speaker systems, speaker arrays that are set up for the environment that they're in, and the Dolby renderer will take your mix and render it for whatever system it's being played on to get the most out of it. Now, the ATMOS ARC is not going to be the same as this system where I have actual atmosphere height speakers, and definitely not like downstairs where I have a 7.1.4 system, but it's going to be cool. It's going to provide a cool surround mix. So anyway, that's my experience setting up the Era 300s. I'll probably have more to say later, or not. But I think if I was just your average Joe Blow consumer and I wanted a good surround system, a good Atmos system, I would buy a Sonos ARC with a sub and a pair of Era 300s, and I would be very, very happy about it. So that's what I gotta say. Have a great day.